She was the strangest prisoner in the prison. Everyone else looks like a walking corpse, but she works out every day. While everyone else talks and brags, she still works out every day. Even when she's working out, she takes it as a workout. Even when it's raining heavily, she still runs 20 laps. It's not that she wants to be a fitness expert, it's that she's got a lot of anger inside her. Because a few months ago, she and her husband were out on a cruise. She woke up in her sleep, wearing a bloody nightgown. Her hands were covered in blood. The floor was covered in blood. There was nothing on the deck but a patch of snow, only a bloodied dagger. Her husband had disappeared. As Taylor picked up the dagger, the police came. All the evidence in court was against Taylor. Shortly before the accident, she had taken out a large insurance policy. The beneficiary was none other than Taylor. The bloody dagger had Taylor's fingerprints on it. The tapes contained her husband's pleas for help. Police suspected her of killing her husband to defraud him of his insurance. Taylor was arrested and jailed for intentional homicide. Her son was first given to her best friend for adoption. She would bring him in for weekly visits, but it wasn't long before she suddenly disappeared with her son. After some investigation, she found her girlfriend's address and phone number again. She claimed she had just moved. She hadn't had a chance to tell Taylor. Taylor was talking to her son. That's when Matt came in. The son saw and called out for his dad. Matt quickly went up and hung up the phone. That's when it all became clear to Taylor. It was all a plan by her best friend and her husband. After they sent her to prison, they moved to a different city and changed their name to start a new life. They thought she'd go to jail for life. Taylor did well for herself. 6 years later, she got a chance to get out on parole. In prison, a friend who was a lawyer found out about Taylor's situation. He told Taylor that since you had been convicted of murdering your husband, now you can go out, and even if you do kill him, there was nothing the police could do for you. These words gave her renewed hope. If you want to die, then I'll let you die for good. After her release from prison, she began to frantically search for information about her best friend and her husband, although they had changed their names. But some data could not be erased. Her best friend used to be a teacher. She Googled her best friend's information. Taylor didn't realize there were over 1,000 teachers with the same name. If she went through them one by one, it would be a huge amount of work. She had to think of something else. At night, she went to her girlfriend's former school. After a rummage through the cupboards, she did find her girlfriend's file. She'd just kicked it on her body. When the police arrived, Taylor had to escape through a window. She used her prison skills. She jumped and jumped and jumped and jumped and jumped. Taylor had left the police far behind her, but due to her lack of knowledge of the terrain, she was still caught. No matter how hard Taylor pleaded, she was sent back to prison. On the way, she screamed and screamed. She said she was innocent. Once the car was on the ferry, the police were fed up with her. The policeman handcuffed her to the car. He ran off to have a coffee with a side order of spice. Taylor tried to get free and the handcuffs were locked to the handlebars. That's when she noticed the car keys were still there. And then she looked at the steel pipe in the back of the car. She had an idea. She started the car. She steps on the gas. First she backs the car up a bit, then she slams the accelerator. The car moves forward quickly. Handcuffs and steel pipes thrust out sparks, knocking a car in front of her right off the boat. Before the handcuffs were free, she slammed into the pipe again. The handcuffs were about to break free. The policeman spotted her. He rushed over to stop her, since she couldn't break free. Then it was a no-brainer. Taylor kicked the accelerator and drove the car off the boat. A huge amount of seawater began to pour into the car. The police officer had no choice. He hurriedly uncuffed Taylor. She took advantage of the opportunity to take the police officer's gun. Then she swam quickly to the surface. The policeman tried to grab her, but was blinded by the butt of her gun. People rushed to get the police into the boat, but Taylor took the opportunity to swim ashore. She made her way to her parents' house in the countryside, looking at her daughter, who had escaped from prison. Her mother didn't say a word. She gave her daughter her life savings. The mother supported her daughter's actions because she believed in her daughter unconditionally. Taylor took the money and set off again. She went to a car shop. She pretended she wanted to buy a luxury car and asked the salesperson to check her credit history to see if she was eligible. She gave her best friend's social security card number. This is what she found at her previous school. After finding her new address, Taylor drove off. By this time, the police were suspicious of the situation. He began to look into his girlfriend's file. Taylor drove up to the villa. She found out from a neighbor there had been a gas leak and an explosion in the room 4 years earlier. Bestie received her lunch on the spot. Her husband had disappeared again. This was no coincidence. Taylor started looking for news of the explosion. She hoped she'd find a trace. She saw a painting behind her best friend in the photo. It was a painting her husband had liked before. She went to a gallery. Based on the painting's message, she found her current husband's address. That's when the police came back. The matter was not yet clear. She couldn't be caught. Taylor had to drive away. Seeing that her husband was having a party in the evening, she put on a beautiful dress and arrived. When her husband saw her, he was stunned. He couldn't have imagined Taylor, who was supposed to be in prison, was here. The husband explained to Taylor he was there because his company was going bankrupt. He had no choice but to do this. It was all to save his family and his son. After all that had happened, Taylor doesn't believe him now. She only had one request. She wants to see her son, who she hasn't seen for 6 years, and to meet him at the cemetery the next day, because there's a funeral here. After all, there were a lot of people around and her husband would not mess around. Taylor saw her son, whom she hadn't seen for 6 years. From a distance, she was about to walk up to him, but he walked away in a panic. It turned out that the son was an actor paid for by her husband. Just as Taylor went to check on him, her husband came up behind her. He knocked Taylor unconscious. When Taylor woke up again, it was dark in front of her eyes. She couldn't see anything. She took out a lighter to illuminate her surroundings. Instead, she found a body beside her. It turns out she's been put in a coffin. She tried with all her might to push the coffin open, but it was no use. When she calmed down, she reached for the gun in her pocket. Luckily, it was still there. She took the gun and shot the coffin once. Then she shot again before she got out. She smashed the glass with a vase. She walked down the street covered in filth. No one knew what she'd just been through. Taylor was walking down the street when she was pulled to the side and the police found her. That's when she had an emotional breakdown. She threw herself into the arms of the police and cried. At night the police found the husband. The husband tried to bribe the police with $1 million. The policeman also pretended to take the bribe. When the policeman asked what you were going to do with your wife, the husband said calmly, "I've already killed her and put her in a coffin in the cemetery." He described it with a light heart and no hint of mercy for life. At that moment Taylor came out from behind the door. She pointed her gun at her husband. She first asked where her son went to school. Then Taylor planned to send him to prison, in the same way he had sent his wife to prison at the time, because their conversation was recorded by the police. Now the husband had nothing to say. Just as the two men were about to turn and leave, the husband grabbed the gun under the table. He shot the policeman in the shoulder. Then he pointed the gun at Taylor. Just as he was about to shoot, the policeman came up from behind. After a struggle, the husband pointed his gun at the policeman again. Just as he was about to shoot, he was shot in the chest. It was Taylor who fired the shot. Taylor then added another shot to finish the scumbag off. The policeman was then wounded in the shoulder and was not seriously injured. Taylor was acquitted of self-defense. At the end of the film, she arrives at her son's school with the police. Although she hadn't seen him for 6 years, she recognizes her son immediately. Taylor calls out his name. He looks back a little uncertainly. Taylor smiled and asked her son, "Do you remember who I am?" The son smiled, nodded, and hugged his mother. The two embraced each other tightly. 6 years had passed. They will never be apart again. This is the end of the film. A revenge film from 1999, Double Jeopardy. They say a woman is weak, a mother is strong. Through her own efforts, the woman not only avenges herself, but also succeeds in reuniting her with her son. An old movie with a perfect ending. A good movie to watch in full straight away.